Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to today's video. Today is my August reading wrap up. I'm going to discuss everything that I read in the month of August. I literally just in my head was like, is it at the end of August? Yes, it is September 2nd right now. It's Labor Day when I'm filming this. And I did finish 5 books and DNF'd 1 in the month of August. It wasn't like the greatest reading month for me. I was traveling and there will be discussions of why I didn't read some of the books I intended to. But if that sounds good to you, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm excited to tell you about the books that I read. Okay, so starting with my TBR, the books that I had pulled out to actually read, I believe I only had 5 on there. And I read 3 of them. No, I had 6. I read 3 and 3 others I did not read. The other 2 reads this month were not included in I wasn't planning on reading them, but I did anyway. And then as was the DNF. So first of all, let's just talk about the ones I quickly did not get to. The first, Kingdom of Ash. I have started this now. I'm on like page 540, I think it is. I'm actually listening to it on audio and like reading it at the same time. I don't know if anyone else does that. But I'm listening to an audio and then when I'm like actually just sitting there, I'm reading it. But yeah, I'm on page 540 in only 2 days. So if you are struggling with a book like this and you're like, how the heck am I going to read this? See if it's on audio. You know, I had a couple Audible credits, so I decided to grab it. But yeah, I didn't get to it in the month of August. And the reason for that is I was saving it for vacation and then I brought it on vacation and I didn't read it on vacation because of various things. One, it was just way too heavy to hold on the plane. I hadn't thought of getting it on audio yet, which I should have done. And then it kept getting wet at the pool. Like some of the pages are all messed up in the beginning of where I tried to read it. And I'm doing a buddy read with a friend of mine. I don't even think she started, but I can't wait anymore. So I'm just doing it. We buddy read the entire series together. But yeah, so I didn't get to this, but now, you know, I'm halfway through I'm about like here. So yeah, I'm like here. So I'm a little bit more than halfway through. So I'll definitely be able to finish this in September. But yeah, that is the first one that I didn't get to. The second one was Pride and Prejudice. That one I had, again, fully intended to get to. It's one that I've wanted to read a lot. I actually have the complete works of Jane Austen right here. So I have it in this form in here. I'm on like chapter 5 or something. Chapter 6, it seems. And yeah, I only got 5% in. I do also have that on my iPad from a while ago. It was like a free book at one point, so I had downloaded it. So I do have it, but I also, after I decided, okay, Kingdom of Ash isn't happening, I tried to read Pride and Prejudice on vacation. I'm like, this is not a vacation book, you know? I'm not in like the 1800s right now in my brain. I'm in the 21st century at a pool. So like I couldn't get there mentally with it. So I just struggled on vacation to read anything. So I didn't finish that. I'm not going to finish it at the moment. I put it back into my like TBR bowl. So if I pull it again, I will pick it. And then the other one was Circe. And if I had planned a little bit better, I would have been able to read this one. Still really want to read this book. It's a retelling of Circe, who is a goddess. And it's kind of like a retelling of her from point of view during the Iliad, which I've never read. I think it's a book, right? But yeah, I definitely still want to read this. I had planned on bringing it on vacation because my friend had interest in reading it. I went with a group of 3 friends on vacation, and but then we got there and we're like, our bags were too full, and I was like, should I bring this? And she's like, no. And if I had like thought ahead a little bit better, like I should have brought it because I would have read it myself. But basically I got another book on the plane ride on the way back because I was like, I don't have nothing to read on this plane. And it took me a little longer than I intended to finish, so I wasn't able to read this one. But that one also is back into the TBR bowl, and hopefully we will get to reading that one soon. One note on the TBR bowl. So I have this like bowl and it just has all of my physical and non-physical TBR in here that I have either downloaded to my Kindle Unlimited app, or I have as like audiobooks or whatever. It's all in here. I think I like this idea because it gets things off of my shelf that I may not be inclined to pick. But there are books on here that I know I want to read. And if I just have to rely on this to pick my books, I'm not gonna be able to stick to it very well. So let me know if you think this is a good idea. Next month, I'm gonna do 6 prompts or 6. I'd usually go for 6, and then I give myself a little wiggle room because I usually read between like 6 and 8 or 9 books per month. Like 7 or 8 books is usually what I get to. This past month was not a great reading month for me, but in general, that's what I've been getting to. And I was thinking I would do like half like prompts so I could try to pick the ones that I want to read. In particular, I definitely want to read Bride by Ali Hazelwood next month. It just looks like October to me. So yeah, or I could just pick from here, and then if it doesn't come out of these 6 books, I'd just be like, okay, I'm also reading this. Like, and add it onto my TBR however I want. Like I did this month. I have 8 books on my TBR, but I only pulled 6 pieces of paper. And that's because why do I have 6? Why do I have 7? Oh, my book club book wasn't in here. So yeah, and Kingdom of Ash, I was just like, you know what, I need to just do this. So let me know what you guys think. Should I do it like that, or should I stick with the bowl? I don't know. I also had this idea in January. I'm going to start a new like challenge and add a book to my TBR every month, which was the most popular book on Goodreads from the previous month of the previous year. So like January 2025, we'll read the most popular book from January 2024 as part of my monthly TBR, because there's lots of ways that I can like get myself out of my own genres. While I read a lot of different stuff, I tend to get like stuck in a like rut, or not a rut, but like okay, I'm only reading these books right now, and I like to have just like varied experiences. So I thought that would be a fun thing to do, and maybe like I could also do a challenge where I would pick like the top 24 books of 2024 and make sure I read them somehow in the month in 2025. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the books that I actually did read. That was a long blurb about things I didn't even read, but I have excuses. Even though you guys didn't even know what my like books were that I had meant to read, I still feel the need to give an excuse for myself. But anyway, okay, so the first one I read was on Kindle Unlimited, and this was one I actually started in July but finished in August. It was Court of Ash, which is the second book in the Broken Kingdom series. I couldn't remember that in my last video, but it is the Broken Kingdom series. It's a fantasy series. I read the first book. I really liked it. I think I rated it 4 stars. This one I'm not going to give away much of the plot because obviously like I can't talk about it too much because it's a series and it's the second book, so I don't want to give anything away from the first book. Almost did that in the last video, but realized what I'd done. But I rated this one 3.5 or 3 stars. I thought it was good. Like it makes me want to continue with the series, and the next book in the series is in this bowl. But I didn't think it was as good as the first one. Basically it follows these 2 people, this princess and then her like handler, a guy who's like trying to find her husband, and it's a very fantasy heavy world. I would say I would say it's romantasy. It's not like high fantasy. Like fantasy is not like the very top of the thing, of the plot, but and the romance is. I like it. I really love high fantasy, but I like this too, and I do want to continue with it. The reason I even picked up this series was because I wanted to read The Ever King, and I realized that this 9 books came before The Ever King, because I think it's supposed to be like their kid or something. I'm not really entirely sure. It could be like something, characters we haven't even met yet. So yeah, I read that book. I thought it was decent. It was 3 stars. It didn't make me want to immediately jump into the next one, so I didn't. But yeah, that was that book. I will continue with the series, but I'm in like no rush to, if that makes any sense. I feel like that's one where I can just, okay, I have a little bit of time left this month. Let me just read the next book in this series. Or, you know, it's definitely one I will go back to. I'm just not like chomping at the bit too, if that makes sense. So I like it, but I'm not like obsessed with it. If you've read the series, let me know. What did you think? Am I gonna like it better? I have rated some of these books 5 stars, like the Throne of Glass ones. I haven't read ACOTAR, and I haven't read Crescent City. I haven't read a ton of like these like book talk, you know, ones. I actually started reading this before I even knew what book talk was, like this series. I picked it up like, I was definitely in this apartment, so it had to be It was right before I moved into this apartment. I had started reading them. So it was probably over 2.5 years ago. I just signed about 2 years ago, but I stopped reading them at Empire Storms, which was the 5th book. I just was like kind of bored, and I don't know, I just didn't want to finish reading it, so I put it down then. I had reread The Assassin's Blade a couple of times because I really love that one, but I like went back and read the whole thing with my friend when she was talking about how she was reading it. I was like, oh, I've read some of that. Let me start over. And I didn't reread The Assassin's Blade because I've already read it 4 times or 3 times or something, but I did start with Throne of Glass this year. I have all the books, but this is only my shelf of books that I have not read. My shelf of books that I have read are actually in the kitchen. This is a weird apartment, but anyway. Yeah, so that was Court of Ash. I don't like it quite as much as I like Throne of Glass, but it's still good. Now on to my favorite book that I read this month, and this is completely different. It is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. You can see I actually tabbed it. I do not tab books. You probably just saw the tab on here because I cried, and anytime a book like makes me cry and I'm gonna want to tell people about it, like I texted my friend, I was like, chapter 49, first cry. So I did tab that, but this is probably, like, I have 2 tabs in here for 2 lines that I just think were like so incredible. Matt Haig, this is about a man who ages very slowly and how he deals with that throughout his very long life. Like, he was born in 1599. I give this 4.5 stars. I'm a huge Matt Haig fan. I read The Humans before The Midnight Library, and I realized like that was a very popular book. I loved The Midnight Library. I think I rated it 5 stars as well as The Humans. I'm a little bit more critical about my ratings now that I'm reading a lot more. I read The Humans like 2 or 3 years ago, and then Midnight Library I read last fall, so almost a year ago. But I really liked both of those books, and they're definitely ones that I would recommend to anybody. One thing about Matt Haig's writing is that he does often write about unaliving yourself or the thoughts of unaliving yourself. And I find that he does it in a way that is relatable and makes sense and makes me feel okay about it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, for people who have had like thoughts like that in the past, it's a relatable way to talk about it, which I appreciate about Matt Haig and his writing. He did just come out with another book this month called The Life Impossible. It just released like today or yesterday. It's coming out this month. I'm not sure which day. Maybe it was yesterday. But I do plan on picking that up and probably reading it in the month of September. It's not on my TBR for the month, but I probably will get it and read it if like the mood strikes, because these are like more serious, not serious books, but it's not a romance. There's like a very small romance like feature in it, but it's like literally 5 pages of the whole book, you know. It's not a big part of the book. But I mean, relationships are a big part of the book. I love Matt Haig's writing. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars though is because it was a little bit slow build up. Like, I started reading it in July, but I put it down because I just wasn't in the headspace to like get into it because my brain was like on other books. So I had to go back to it. So that was kind of like, you know, I feel like a lot of Matt Haig's writings just like pull me in. But that's probably just of like where my brain was, and I always want to give a book a fair shot, which is why if it's on my TBR, I'm not necessarily going to read it, because if I'm like, I'm not in the mood to read this, I know I'm not going to like it right now, let me put it off, you know? But the other thing about this is that it ended very, very quickly. Like, the conclusion came very quickly and then it was over. And the epilogue was very short, and I just wanted more from the characters because I had grown to like really like the characters and be interested in their lives, and I want to know what happens next in this world. It's magical realism, obviously. Not obviously, but it's basically about a man who was born in 1599 and is still alive today, and he only looks like he's about 40. So I also love magical realism. And that's kind of a theme that I wouldn't say that Matt Haig has that a lot in his books, but it, like, The Humans is about an alien who comes to the Earth to like kill everyone who like knows about this like formula that will change life, and you know, it'll basically like advance humanity a billion years in like a year or whatever, and like aliens are like, no, they're not ready for that. Like it's you know, it's something like that. So it's like kind of believable, like could happen, but probably isn't true, you know? Probably there is no man who is this old or whatever. And there probably is no alien coming to like kill everyone, but who knows? But it's like, it's believable. That's why I believe it's kind of like magical realism. But anyway, and I wanted more from the characters at the end. I didn't feel like the end was exactly what I wanted. It was a little unsatisfying, the ending, but the themes in this book were amazing, and I actually tabbed some lines, so I can read some of them to you because like they're not spoilery. At least this one's not. It says, music simply uncovers what is there, makes you feel emotions you didn't necessarily know you had inside you, and runs around waking them all up, a rebirth of sorts. Like, I just thought that was like such a good line. And I feel like a lot of people who like love music and feel like that would relate to that. I'm not like a musician or anything, but I was like, yes, that makes sense. Then the other one was, this one isn't spoilery, but it's like kind of like, okay, this relates to how I feel sometimes. Yes, there had been a void inside me, but voids were underrated. Voids were empty of love, but also pain. Emptiness was not without its advantages. You can move around in emptiness. Like, I just thought, okay, that line I really relate to. So there's a couple of really amazing lines in here. I would recommend that people read this. Just know that there is a theme of unaliving yourself in this book. I believe that would be like the only like trigger warning. So if you don't want to read that, like, don't read this book, but I thought it was great. So that was 4.5 stars. Next, okay. So I mentioned in my last video that I am currently writing my own novel, and fear is a theme in the book that I'm writing. And I don't know how to write fear. I've never been like this scared before, except maybe in my dreams. And so I'm trying to read things that I know have fear in them. And so that is why I read Haunting Adeline. This is like, I didn't read it for the smut. I honestly didn't find the smut to be that disturbing in this book. My 2-star rating is for lack of plot. I just don't understand why the male main character becomes obsessed with the female main character, and it's something that I was like thinking about the whole time I was reading it. So yeah, I felt like the plot was really loose, and it wasn't about like people, it was about sex. I'm trying to explain this book without like giving it away, but it's like morally black MMC, like the blackest of black. If you are disturbed by any like kind of smut, I would not recommend this. But if you are like dark, like love dark romance, like this is like the ultimate dark romance, I think. Like, I've never read anything like it. I don't know if I will read anything like it. Wow. One of the first scenes of their interaction is just I think you know what I am thinking of if you've read this book. But the reason I gave it 2 stars is not because of any of that. Like, that was pretty secondary to my like reading it. I wanted to read how she felt when she was afraid. And it was like, you know, it gave me some ideas of be like, okay, yes, that does make sense. Like, when this happens to you, like, okay, I can see how this would, like, it gave me like a pretty decent like looking of like how to write fear, which is what I wanted to read it for. I just had no intention of reading the next one. I did read it, but I DNF'd it. So, but I read another book in between. But let's just go ahead and talk about Hunting Adeline next. And the first third of the book was great for fear because she was scared off her rocker the entire time, which was what I wanted. So that was good. And I was like, okay, like, this story is giving me character development. Is like, I actually want to know now what happens to the main character Adeline and like how she goes about the rest of her life after this. I DNF'd it because I got to the scene where I'm trying to like not give it away if you do intend to read it, but if you do intend to read it, maybe just don't listen to the next like 2 minutes. The reason I find that behavior from the male character okay in the first book is because in the female main character's mind, she is wanting it. She's like, oh, I don't want this, but like, I kind of want it, you know? And in the second book, that line is crossed and I had to stop reading it. I was like, okay, I got the fear reading out of my, like, I got what I needed from this book. And I was really hoping that there would be like a plot redemption line for this character where he realizes what, you know, he's been doing is not okay. And he like realizes that he's actually the monster that he's like fighting against, but he doesn't do that. I don't know if he does in the end. I don't think he does. My friend who told me to read these books, she did tell me how it ends, and I'm glad I didn't finish it. It's just disturbing, and it crosses a line that I don't think anyone should. I'm not going to shame anyone for wanting to read this book and like having like dark fantasies, whatever, you do you. It's not for me. And I also don't want any man to read this and think that that's realistic and that's something that they should strive for. So if you're a man, please never read this book because I don't want you getting any ideas. But I DNF'd it at 66% when I realized what was going to happen, and I just couldn't stomach it. So moving on. That was, not my favorite thing to read. The next book I read was the third book in I think this is the Fae of Air series. A novel of Elfhame. My foot is falling asleep. Apologies, I'm sitting on the floor. This is like the Fae of Air. I can't remember what it's called, like the actual series, but it is the third book in this series. This one is The Cruel Prince. So I read the third book in that. I read the previous two in the month of July. I was like hesitant to pick up The Cruel Prince because I had seen so many people talk about it, and I was like, I don't know, it seems a little juvenile for me, but it was not like, you know, adult themes of fantasy. Like there wasn't like a lot of like war and fighting and like stuff like that, which I actually like to read about, which is odd. But I liked this series because the Fae were not like beautiful goddesses, right? Like some of them looked like the Fae that you imagine in your nightmares, you know, like there's like the main character's father is green, you know, like, and that's just a small description of what he's like. Like he has a hat that he soaks in blood. Like it's scary, right? It's supposed to be scary, not scary for me because I'm a 37-year-old adult, but it's like more realistically what Fae would be like. I don't know, not that Fae are realistic, but you know what I mean. The first book, I went into it thinking like, okay, this is like gonna be a like romantasy series. It's not very heavy on the romance, which I did like because I didn't connect to the main male character basically at all. I liked this series, and I would have liked it better if it had left out some of the like subplot of romance. I didn't really understand it very well. Like I got the female main character, her vibes, but maybe it's because it wasn't from his point of view. I think there is a book that is his, How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. I think that's from his point of view, which I am interested to read because maybe it'll like make me like their relationship a little bit better. If I ever saw it in like a discount store or something like that, I'd probably buy it. It's not on KU, Kindle Unlimited. The first two books were, which is why I only have this one. And this one wasn't, so it was sad, so I had to order it, but I did want to finish it. So it's about Jude, and it's the last leg of her story in Elfhame, and I liked it. I thought it was a 4-star book. Honestly, I liked how it ended. I gave the second one 4 stars, the first one 3 stars, and now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, was it really a 4-star book? Maybe it was like a 3.5-ish. What did I write? I did write 4 stars. You know, it's a 3.5 to 4-star read for me. I like this series as a whole, but don't read it because if you want like the romance part, there's not a lot of romance. The politics and the scheming and like that kind of stuff is like pretty good. They were nice, easy reads. So if you're like kind of looking for like a fantasy palette cleanser, I would say like this is a good one. This is, I believe this is YA. Like it's like there are some themes of adult themes, but they're not like explicit. There might be one scene that is explicit, but like one sentence. I can't quite remember. But I thought this was pretty good. I liked it. I didn't like the fantasy. Cardan is not my go-to guy. Like, not a guy who I'm like, ooh, I would like to meet this man in person. Like, no interest in that. He just didn't do it for me. I thought that their relationship was really surface level and like not very much connection or anything. And I was like enemies to lovers, but like bullies. You know, he was like her bully. I don't know. I didn't really get it. But I did like the politics and like the world and stuff of this book, so I think that's why I rated it more on the like the four star ranking instead of like, I think it's more of like a 3.5 probably. I did really like the second book because that like showed a lot of the world and it had a lot of action and stuff like that, and that's what I like in books. This one did have like a lot of that stuff too, but yeah. So Queen of Nothing, the end of the Elfhame series. Or I think it's like Court of Air. That's what it's called, the Court of Air series. And there's a few more that go along with this that are like companion books that I haven't read. Maybe I will in the future. The Stolen Heir, I should figure out what that is about. Because if it's about like the little kid, I don't want to read it because I don't care. The Dark Part of the Forest, I have no idea what that's about. So I do like the world, and I wish that there was like more books in the series so I could read them because I did enjoy the world. Okay, so then the last book that kind of made it so I didn't read Circe, because I picked this one up in the airport on the way home, was My Lady Jane. This is by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. I didn't realize that this was written by 3 people and that they have like a whole series. I'll show you a little picture actually of all of the like different series they have. It's a standalone series, like, so this is a standalone book in like this kind of, I don't know if all of these ladies are like connected, but there's My Plain Jane, My Calamity Jane, My Contrary Mary, My Imaginary Mary, My Salty Mary. So there's like a Captain Hook type thing in here. There's Mary Queen of Scots, like a retelling of her, but this is a retelling of Jane Grey, Lady Jane Grey, who was Queen of England for 9 days before being captured and then beheaded many years later. That's what actually happened in history. But they do a little retelling of that in a more fantasy world. So basically, instead of like the conflict in England being between Catholics and Protestants, it's against Verities and Ethians. I think it's Verities. I'm not entirely sure. I did read this book a few days ago, but that's fine. It's about Verities and Ethians can turn into animals or shapeshifters, and Verities cannot. And that seems to be like the only like magic around. I did learn about this because of the Amazon series. I watched a few episodes and was like, oh, I really like this. I want to read the book, so I stopped reading it. This was 3 stars for me. It's a little juvenile. It's silly. There's definitely like some silly themes. It's more for, I would say, like younger teenager audience. I would say this would be good for, because it's like they're thinking about kissing each other the whole time. Like they don't even kiss until the end. Like, spoiler alert. But, you know, it's about like 16-year-olds basically. Because that's how old, really. I don't know how old she was. I think she was like maybe 19 when she was queen, but they age her down a little bit in this. So yeah, I mean, it was cute. It was a nice, like, get me back into reading after I've had like a rough month. It's kind of thick. I was like, oh my God, when is this book going to be over? I didn't realize it was so long. It was close to 500 pages. But I did enjoy this book. I won't read any of the other ones in like the series. Like the only other one I'd be interested in is like Mary Queen of Scots. She does make an appearance in this book, but yeah, I love like England, kings and queen, like history and stuff like that too. So it really drew me to this. Again, I think it was just a little not really aimed for me, but I thought it was cute. It was a little silly. It was like an interesting story, good premise. I think just the age range wasn't quite for me, so that's why I kind of rated it a little lower, but 3 stars, still a good read. I'm glad I read it, but I probably won't continue on with any other books in this like standalone series. So that is it. The worst book that I read was Hunting Adeline, which I gave 1-star DNF at 66%. And my favorite book was How to Stop Time, which wasn't very surprising for me. I love Matt Haig as an author, so that wasn't surprising to me at all. I knew I was gonna really like this. I bought this at a bookstore with a friend when I was like, I'm gonna get 1 book, and I got 4, including Circe. But that is it. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Let me know, what do you guys think of the books? Give me your thoughts on these if you've read them. What books do you want me to read, review? And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll probably will do some sort of reading vlog or something this month. I don't have a ton of videos planned because I just kind of got back on YouTube, but yeah, let me know. And I'll see you guys in my next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.